This is so it's top of the hour. This is Camille here at Mayfield. Really thrilled to have all of you joining today. I know a number of people are still logging in, so I just want to give a little background. So today's call is with Shivananda Nanda from JPMorgan, who I got to know, let's see, about 4 months ago. I know you joined JPMorgan a little over a year and a half ago as global CTO. But before we get into formally introducing you, I just wanted to share a little bit about Mayfield and where we're at this point. As you know, we've been spending a lot of time on AI. We've set aside a little over $3 billion of our assets to focus specifically on AI. And that's pretty crazy to think that the entire focus or the investment focus is that direct around AI, but it really is based upon the premise that we're seeing a true transformational opportunity across the entire IT stack. So this is a simple sort of cake stack, if you will, of the enterprise architecture that we believe is about to be remade into an AI first thesis. So everything from the core technology in the data center being redesigned to operationalize and optimize the use of GPUs. That means new power, new cooling, new networking, new photonics, new storage, and of course, these AI factories have a whole different sort of design thesis. So a whole new freeway system is being built. The models need performance and infrastructure to improve how they operate at scale. The data layer needs to be rethought as it makes itself accessible from a performance and reliability standpoint. And of course, how coding is done. The middleware layer is being rethought so fundamentally, and tools to support that are required as well. The application layer, we think, is going through an entire redesign around outcome-based models versus systems of record. And then solutions, perhaps vertically unique solutions, what we call AI teammates, these agentic-based themes will perhaps spawn in the thousands. We'll actually see many different unique sort of market opportunities. And if this cake stack were redrawn, I'd draw it as an upside down pyramid, where at the top there literally are thousands, and maybe at the bottom not so many, because the providers of the data center will be providing to those data center hyperscalers and neo clouds as fewer opportunities, but at the top there'll be many thousands of opportunities. So with that, let me come back to introducing Shri and our keynote speaker today. So, Shri, you've been in the industry for a number of years. I think you were at eBay as CTO or head of infrastructure for 13 or so years. Then you went on to PayPal. You were CTO there. You built core infrastructure for PayPal. You've now joined JP Morgan. I think you joined as global CTO and then leveraged, I think, a lot of your payments knowledge to now become the global CIO for payments, which is an interesting role, highly tied to the business and business outcome. Um, the goal today is for you to share, as CIO peer group here of conversation, kind of your lessons learned. And we'll dive into lots of open questions from the attendees here. But let me stop sharing and let you sort of cover one, your perspective and some insights that, again, we'll capture these slides and share with everybody after as well. So, Shri, welcome. Thank you for joining us today, and love to see your content, and be prepared for a bunch of questions from the audience.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the conversation with all of you. And I thought, I will just maybe share a little preamble on the lessons that I've learned over not just the last 18 months, but since the beginning of this AI summer that happened in December of 22. We had the Chat GPT moment, and most of us that typed in the best prompt we could muster into Chat GPT, we had a bit of a jaw-dropping moment on the response we got, and was like, "Whoa, what is this?" But since then, there's been a lot of evolution. Everyone in the enterprise has started to look to apply it. We already have at least 18 months of learnings as we go into what I call Gen 3, which I'll talk about as well. That said, let me first jump into a quick introduction to payments at JP Morgan Chase. We have various business units at JP Morgan Chase. One of them is the commercial and investment bank, of which payments is a portion. You see all the stats here. I'm not going to go through it. And on a regular day, we do $10 trillion in payments. And on certain peak days, we do all the way up to 15 trillion in payments as well. And that's a massive scale. And after my time in tech, about 15 years in e-commerce and almost a decade now at fintech like PayPal, I
Hmm.
decided, what I want next is uh, a place that has extremely large scale and very high complexity. That's what I found in JPMC. I was out there in the market for about 6 months. I talked to 15 different firms, picked this one to come to because I wanted every day to be a learning. And
Hmm.
you can see it in the scale here. The segments we serve, we have a treasury services business, a merchant services business, we have trade and working capital, we have embedded finance, and there is not a player or a brand in the world that doesn't bank with us or do business with us in payments. Um, this again a continuation of the various business units we have in payments, and everything all the way up from traditional wires all the way up to digital currencies. We cover it all, and we have investments in every single area. But like many of you, I have a technology estate where certain things were built yesterday and certain things were built 5 decades ago. So
Hmm.
when
Yeah.
we take the pace of technology that's coming at us with AI, how do we as CIOs apply that to our estates and make sure that it can truly drive effectiveness? And my lesson so far has been technology is definitely moving at the pace of light, but that's not how fast humans move or organizations move. And I'll
Hmm.
talk a bit of that in some of the slides that I have here. Let me jump into it straight. What we've done within the firm is we've organized this uh, chapter in AI into three very distinct streams. We, of course, take the strategic objectives that we have as a firm and turn it into three pillars for AI investment. One is AI for business. The second one is AI for operations, and the third one is AI for tech. No one is important than the other. They're all equally important. And on the AI for business side, we're looking to see what kind of a difference can we make for our customers. How can we introduce the concept of agentic banking, agentic treasury, and so on, and do everything from the traditional fraud science that we've built with like classic machine learning and apply new models in there, all the way up to we are building a foundational model called the large payment model, very similar to LLM, but this is an LPM, and it's trained on all payments messages that we have seen over a long period of time to be able to identify certain kinds of factors about those things to improve STP, improve pace, speed, reliability, and so on. At the same time, on the operation side, um, with a scale business of this nature, there are always exceptions that we have our teammates in operations and customer services handling. How do we look at that area? In some cases, reimagine the workflow itself, but in other cases, improve the customer experience that we have, whether it is in onboarding or answering a question or whatever it may be, through much better approaches applying AI there. That's what AI for operations is. And most of the conversation today, I'll focus on AI for tech. And in AI for tech, a broad range of considerations we have. One is I had a team basically take AI and do a full analysis of our real time payments ecosystem. And the findings that it came back with were just mind blowing. That would have probably taken dozens of senior leaders meeting over months to get to the same level of fidelity of what AI was able to do in a deep design assessment, a deep architecture assessment, a deep quality, security, and reliability assessment as well. And the findings it brought back were now are now a part of the findings that we use to then pay down and make sure that we have an even more robust software. Applying,
Bree, I'm gonna interrupt you. Sorry,
yeah, yeah,
I'm
please,
curious about. I
please.
mean, this is an amazing chart. I'm curious on two things. One, I've got a question here from Justin. I just turned his mic on, but first, I wonder if you could just describe how you went about organizing this, meaning who was involved in this, because this is touching, operations, business, technology. It's like this is the whole organization in a sense.
Absolutely.
What was the steering committee that came to this sort of simple, relatively simple an analogy, I guess, of where the opportunities are? And then, Justin, I've turned your mic on to ask the enterprise architecture platform question that you asked.
Let me answer your question first. The engagement and the energy around this is all the way from the top with Jamie. Like he has an understanding and a narrative around this. The operating committee is very closely involved. In fact, the firm made a very conscious decision in elevating the role of the CDAO to the OC level, therefore
Mm,
sponsoring the initiative right from the top. Engagement from everyone in the businesses, operations, and technology, and leaders picked in each area. For
mm,
AI for Tech, we've organized that under the Global CIO. All of us have a dotted line relationship into the global CIO, and we work with Lori Beer very closely.
yep.
She's an anchor who's helping create a vision along with all of us, and then
Mm,
also holding us accountable for the progress we make on it. And at the same time, creating an environment where all of us can learn from each other really well, so we accelerate our journeys together. So I would say this is a moment where the whole firm has gotten engaged. It's not just the CIOs.
mm,
Everyone in the firm has AI on their agenda, in their objectives. We have strategic priorities at the OC level that are marked AI strategic initiatives, and there is tracking on a continuous basis, including an AI acceleration forum that's run at the OC level. But I'll take
Great.
the question on the call as well.
Yeah, Justin, go ahead.
Thanks, Camille. Hi, Sri. It's Justin. Yeah, I'm just interested in the architecture enablement platform. It's an intriguing three words you've got there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a problem with maintaining a view of your architecture landscape as it evolves, and particularly when it's evolving even faster. Clearly, a step change in automation is required, and I'm inferring that that's probably something like what's meant in architecture enablement platform, but I'd love to hear more.
Multiple different things. One is a belief in a concept called architecture building code. Architecture building code is very similar to a metropolitan building code. If you
Mm,
need to put something up in a city, there are implicit rules that you have to follow, actually explicit rules that you have to follow on how far are you from the street? How's the plumbing done? How's the sewage done? What's the distance from your neighbors? Things of that nature. How tall can the building be and such? What we've done is started to codify a building code for our technology estate done by enterprise architects. Then
mm,
take that and turn it into basically a constitution that lives in the coding space of an average engineer. So the basic things that need to happen while coding is occurring, you shift left and ensure or assure actually that that's happening in the workspace itself. And most importantly, the reactive portion of this is twofold. One is the concept of a digital twin, which is a full
mm,
view of all the assets that every noun you have in the system has to go into an asset management system that is continuously discovered. And through the discovery, you're not only identifying the nouns, but you're also identifying the relationships between them. And then you're looking at the intent as specified by the building code, the reality of what you discovered, measuring the drift between the two and calling that the new technology debt that you go
mm,
address.
mm. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Let me let
Yeah.
you continue along. I know you've
Yeah.
got a
So
couple
look, I
others,
mean, a
but
bunch of things here, and I won't go into all of that. But on the very end of this is the concept of AI command center. When I moved into the payments role in the beginning of 25, my team came and told me we'd like to build a reliability command center. It'll be like at a certain city, we'll have these many people there. We'll have all these things on the screens. And I've built command centers before. I told them you can build a command center, but no rooms and no people. And they took that challenge and they've rolled out one of the first early versions of what we call the payment tech command center.
mm,
And what it's doing is it's taking observability data, that asset management digital twin that I'm talking about, looking at drift on a continuous basis, proactively identify what can break, often have a negative time to detect and address it. But more importantly, when something breaks, catch it fast, triage it fast, and resolve it fast as well. I have more, so I would love to get to the question, so I'll keep going. This is a mental model that I want to share with all of you in terms of a risk-based approach to rolling out AI, both for our customers and for the firm itself. It's a 2x2, as you can see. On the one axis, you have internal and external. That's the y-axis. And on the other axis, you have assist and act. And very simple risk math will tell you assisted internal is the lowest risk use case. That should be rampant. It should be bottoms up innovation. It should be something that everyone is trying to do using commodity tools as quickly as they can. Now, of course, acting on behalf of the customer is where the risk is the highest. And therefore, you need to have a proper cycle of imagination, architecture, execution, testing, and an approach where you start with small segments, you apply an experimentation methodology, you see if your hypothesis is right, and then move forward as a meritocracy. That's what you need to do. So it's a quick 2x2 model. I know a lot of you are probably trying to describe to your stakeholders what direction of travel you should go. And I say it's diagonally outward on this chart is what my proposal is for all of you. Of course, each one of these, I've named them as, this is also a Substack article I have, which has a little more detail, but it essentially talks about the augmented enterprise being the first spot, and then eventually an agentic experience for the customers being that final destination that you want to get to, but traversing the other two boxes as well. This is one other mental model where how do you engage the whole organization in this moment? AI is definitely a disruption. It'll only become a transformation if we apply leadership to this disruption. And for that, I took a three-pronged approach in the team. One is adopt commodity AI as quickly as you can, of course, with the risk and controls consideration. So whether this is Microsoft 365 Copilot or GitHub Copilot, or our own version of LLM Suite that we built as the internal AI chat engine and so on, that is something we want to get in the hands of everyone as quickly as we can. Why? Because you will see magic come from people using it in unique ways. And sometimes you want to take those and scale it further into the rest of the organization. Micro innovation is an extension of that, where there are pockets of people who are progressive, who are beginning to apply these technologies in ways that we didn't even imagine, giving them the room to do that, putting it in a little bit of a risk sandbox so that it doesn't go wild, evaluating it on a continuous basis, and graduating them to something larger. And finally, the flagship use cases are those graduated use cases, which are big investment, big return that you personally monitor as a CIO, and then ensure that it is meeting the objectives, which brings me to a little bit of the concept of measurement. When we first started, our measurements were all about awareness, adoption, usage, and so on. But the thing is, if I take that to my CEOs, they go like, yeah, great, so what? Right? So you need to go from there, the output, like you got usage, you go to output, outcome, and impact. The more closer you can measure the impact, the better it is, because that's the currency that the business understands. That's always a struggle because you can't just directly relate revenue to an AI thing that you did. So it's hard to measure. So where I've landed for now is measure the outcomes more carefully, because outcomes are a good transfer function and a proxy for showing value.
Yeah. So there's a question here from Larry Fitzpatrick about trusting a lot of these tools and technology. So as you've got the tooling and governance slide here, Larry, I've turned your mic on if you want to ask a question.
Sure. There's a lot of anxiety around, is this safe enough to use? We have to review it. We have to review the downstream dependencies, data loss protection, whatever security things we're worried about. Are we going to manage change? How are we going to manage change to it? How have you built an onboarding mechanism that operates at the speed you need? Because these tools are coming out daily, they're being upgraded weekly. You want people to experiment and select things in the right way, but that requires a certain amount of speed that is becoming very unnatural for organizations whose normal tool adoption cycle is probably measured in years.
Yeah. Now, look, I mean, being JPMC, we are regulated all across the world. We are a 225-year-old, 227-year-old business that's built on deep trust. And that is the one currency that we can never erode. So we take risk and controls very, very seriously. We have applied constructs like sandboxing to the various technologies that we have rolled out, which is why we built LLM Suite, which is an internal version of, call it, ChatGPT. And that has all kinds of guardrails. And what you bring up is, Larry, a very important question on guardrails. When we as humans act with our agency, there are various things that happen implicitly. Our values, ethics and morals, laws of the nation, regulations, policies of the company that you work in, and norms in our culture all apply implicitly in the judgment and choices we make. Left to AI by itself, all of those things don't exist. And that makes for a guardrail platform that you need to build. And we've taken a very careful approach to building those guardrails to where the power of what this technology brings doesn't actually land us in any kind of risk that we would consider either unforgivable to start with or actually unacceptable as well. And for example, we are beginning to roll out Cloud Code. And we've taken a very careful approach to where we have had to go back to Anthropic and have them build certain kinds of enterprise features into it to ensure that as we roll it out, we have the right kind of approach to policy going top down, but preferences going bottoms up. So what is allowed and denied is managed through enterprise settings. And what the creative part at the same time is enabled through allowing for things like skills to be built, but eventually sedimented into our marketplaces and so on. This tech is also an enabler in bringing controls and risk closer to where the code is being written versus in the outer loop. So there are certain things that this tech enables as well in this area. And being clear-eyed, using humility as your strategy, learning every single day, making corrections every single day is probably the best approach to learn and grow into this. But all with the same hardness of risk and controls that we've always lived by in the past.
Anshu asked a question here about how you show value. And Anshu, I've turned your mic on, and I know you talked about outcome-based versus technology-based metrics a moment ago. Anshu, I don't know if you want to further ask your question here.
Hey, Shri, long time. Good to see you here.
Hey, Anshu, how are you?
Pretty good. Hey, so I am struggling, right? Everybody is kind of saying, show the productivity. Productivity is the bottommost rung. Sure, we can show with all the usage and this and that. But how are we relating to business value? It's a struggle, right? Technologists and relating the business. How do we measure it? I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna post something on this topic fairly soon on Substack, but I'll tell you my experiments with this and where I've arrived over time. Like I said, the first round of this was awareness, adoption, usage, and things of that nature, which is, it's important for the early phases of rolling out AI in the organization. But then I started to focus on education and proficiency. So just because people are using it doesn't mean they're using it well. Proficiency is important, and that's a upskill, reskill kind of factor that you need to go to. To me, when I say impact is measured in the currencies that business reports on, like revenue, profitability, margins, cost, and things of that nature. And what I'm encouraging all parts of the organization, including my stakeholders, to do is for now, step one level back to impact, outcome. And outcome, to me, can be measured in three ways. The first signals that you will get in deploying this are time to market signals. It was going to take 6 months, it now takes 4. It's going to take 3 years, maybe now it takes 1. Time to market signals are the first signals that you'll get. Time to market signals are important because going faster with a customer means that you got more runtime with them in terms of generating revenue. So I would say focus on time to market first. Okay? So if you focus on time to market, the second order function from time to market is capacity. How? If you took a 9-month project with 10 engineers and you did it in 6 months, those 10 engineers are now useful for another 3 months to do something else. You got capacity. What can you now do with that capacity? If you had a list of items to do and you've drawn your line there, Does the line now go further down? And can you do more? Demonstrate that. How do you demonstrate that? You could say, how many epics per month am I now tackling? How many milestones am I delivering in a quarter? And things of that nature. That would be number two. Third would be productivity and cost. And that is something that you take as a final step where you got time to market, you got capacity, and eventually you can say, I'll take some of that capacity to the bottom line and leverage that as a demonstration of productivity as well.
Yeah, awesome. I also turned Nino's mic on, and I know you've got one or two more slides here.
No worries. Take your time.
And Nino's asking a question about AI literacy and the question of how to bring the business units along so that they're maybe speaking at the same language. Nino, I've turned your mic on if you want to further ask a question there.
Yeah, Sri, thank you for the presentation. Great strategy and framework. The question is really, as you know, the technology evolved so fast, in which what we define agentic last year, it is different this year, and it's continued to evolve. So how do you bring along your business partner in not just educating them, but also getting them involved? I mean, it's easy for the business partner to just stay on, hey, what output or outcome that you can generate. But then at the same time, you want them to be involved. So I guess question on the literacy is that part of your strategy here is to improve the acumen of both your technology organization as well as your business stakeholders? Just maybe get a perspective on that would be great.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, part of my job there is done by the fact that every headline everywhere, every customer you meet, every forum you're in, there is conversation on AI. So there's some of that just comes from the environment we live in today. Like I have more people coming to me and going, what can I do with AI? Now, that said, it can't stop at that. To me, the conversation mid-year last year changed completely. It used to all be about, it's about engineers and SDLC. But now it is every single function. There is no function in the company that will not benefit from this technology. And it's become even more so since the second launch of Claude Code in the October timeframe. A part of this is I've actually gone to every senior leader offsite and done demos for them to show them how they could use it. I've showed them how this is not about coding. It's actually about accomplishing something that they want to accomplish much faster and sometimes with higher quality. Things like product research, pricing analysis, full-fledged strategy document on like very bespoke topics, such. Or just taking the content they have already in their OneDrive and creating a presentation automatically. So little things where they now not only see and hear it, but they start to feel it a little bit with their own hands, creating excitement not just in the engineers, who, of course, as engineers, we are ahead by about 18 to 24 months on this. But then what I see is people in controls, legal, finance, product, design, all getting excited by the art of the possible here and using that momentum to then say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign all of you up for Microsoft 365 Copilot. I'll even send you some prompts where you can get started. And once you get them started, there's no stopping. Because these are all smart, creative people who know how to put the technology to use once you give them a little nudge.
But you're playing a very active role there. You're sort of the inspired leader here that's giving them the, as you just said, the art of the possible, which maybe they don't realize they have the capacity to realize technologically wise, and you're giving a green light to that.
Not just a green light, but also showing them that it's not actually as hard as they think it may be. Showing them how easy certain things are and getting each person going. And now they come back with ideas to say, we've been trying to work on this. Maybe I'll give you, my finance partner is doing an offsite this week. 2 days of AI.
Wow.
2 days of AI. And at the offsite, the finance offsite, they're actually building prototypes right now. And that's the movement you need to create. Movement comes with energy, and that energy is always about inspiration. So getting deeply involved is the only way I know. Okay, let me share a couple more thoughts before I.
Yeah, great. And then we'll open it up for some more questions. So come back to.
What is this? This is a picture of a factory in the late 1800s. It is powered by a steam engine, which is in the basement. And the way that power was moved to all of the machinery that needed that power was through this concept of belts, pulleys, and shafts. Okay, that's how this factory, and you can see in the illustration, I generated this with Nano Banana, of course. And you can see on each one of those floors, you have that central shaft. It has pulleys, the belts are going into the machines, and all that kind of stuff. Turns out when electrical motors first came out, it actually took decades to get productivity. And the reason it took decades to get productivity is they took that steam engine out in the basement and put an electrical motor in its place. Still kept all the pulleys, belts, and shafts. We are in that chapter with AI, where all of us are beginning to realize old workflows have been built for humans to interact with each other and have a high coordination tax. Taking AI and just putting it into that old harness is not going to yield the kind of productivity that you need. This has to be an end-to-end play. It has to be a reimagination of the factory floor, as in this example. And it's only then that you'll truly unlock the multiplicative power of what AI can do. If you take one task here and one task there, not much will occur. The simple example is, I have the responsibility of fixing doors in a car manufacturing line. From manual tools, you gave me an electric tool. My job of fixing a door went from 10 minutes to 3 minutes. Is the car coming out any faster? Absolutely not. You replaced me with a robot. Is the car coming out any faster? It's not. So you have to think end to end. And this is where I believe that along with engineers, product managers, designers, control folks, various other people need to get involved in the journey quickly. And those squads is where you'll get the unlock from over a period of time. And lastly, this was a senior leader conference that we had for global technology. I did a piece called What If? And I summarized this. You'll have these slides to look at. And part of this was to be provocative with the leaders, to create a sense of urgency. And I start with something very simple like, what if the junior developer that you just hired never learns to write a for loop by hand? Very similar to how you maybe never managed memory registers. All the way up to, what is the new skill that is of value? Probably not writing code. Maybe it's reading code. All the way up to something like, malware is no longer software, it's a poem. It's a piece of text that can make the system act in a way that it was not intended to act. And all the way up to the other extreme, which is, what if the job only exists because the regulator said it needs a human being? Again, the intent of that, these were 12 different slides that I've tried to mash up into one slide here. But the intent there was to be provocative, to get people to think outside of their day-to-day, and to start to ask the what if questions more, so that they can figure out the potential of this, not just the headline-based version that they're getting in the industry, but to apply it to their workplace and see what kind of unlock they can create in direction going forward. So that's the end of my content. I will say it's a fascinating time to be in, and I know we have up to 25 minutes. I'm happy to take any questions or participate in any conversation. I'd love to learn from all of you too.
Great. Yeah. So Patrick, I turned your mic on here. You're talking about how tools are changing and how this changes the way of working. So how do you envelope all this together? So Patrick, maybe go ahead and further describe your question, and let's see if we can dive in.
First of all, thank you. This is deeply insightful, and I appreciate the the contact that you're sharing and the insights from doing it. At the core of my question, is this notion. So just as you described, for AI to really fulfill its potential, there's a massive amount of change management to do. Change management, when we're thinking of the strategy to do it, always works, right? On the whiteboard, it always works. And where it lives or die is often in the middle management, where people have to help their teams understand why and how and direct them and coach them. And what I'm seeing is that those folks in the middle team are in the midst. This is not just about learning a new tool. They're in the midst of thinking about, well, what does this mean for me, et cetera. And so there's a bit of a catch-22. The people that are the most important to get progress made are themselves caught into a, what does it mean? How do I think about this, et cetera. So how have you approached kind of this messy middle?
Yeah. Look, I mean, this is actually a journey in culture. There is no doubt about that. You're right. In any transformation, any environment that is encountering the transformation is high in emotion. That emotion also includes anxiety and fear from what's going to happen to roles and stability and things of that nature. The sooner we jump in as leaders and turn that into excitement and energy, the better it is. A few important things that I'll call out. One is, if you don't have a narrative top down, people will fill in the blanks. And oftentimes people will fill in the blanks in diametrically opposite ways. Some very excited, jumping in and creating a positive narrative, some very fearful and creating a negative narrative. And eventually, depending on the norms of the organization, one may end up overpowering the other.
Interesting.
And the first case is, which one do you want winning in that situation? So my suggestion is, you must own a strong, clear narrative from the top. You have to start with the why, of course, like as all of you know, and starting with the why and then getting people mobilized around the positive possibilities in the future and demonstrating that they're not just being instructed to go on a checklist journey, but you're actually in it with them as much as you can be, is important. That said, one other thing that I found extremely beneficial is every organization has a primary operating system, which is the reporting hierarchy of the whole organization. And it almost always has a secondary operating system, a set of influencers that have a disproportionate followership, agnostic of their titles. I, as a leader, have tapped into that secondary operating system, figured out who those people are, found those influencers, and used them as a conduit for the message on top of my own messaging through the hierarchy as well. Look, I mean, you ask a very important question. I don't necessarily have like a fantastic or all answers to it. I'm someone just like you that is learning through every day, figuring out how to traverse this, what I would consider the fourth big transition that I'm going through. I went through the internet revolution, the e-commerce revolution, the mobile revolution, the cloud revolution, and this now is my fifth, which is the AI one, and this is the biggest so far.
Hemant, I turned your mic on. You asked a question about the security footprints, particularly around payment. Maybe you can further describe your question.
Yeah, thanks, Camille and Sri. Amazing session. So, technology is a police and thief game from the perspective of security. So just like, the technology plumbing is improving the way you mentioned in your first slide, and, that's the architecture you put together. The security issues, they will also correspondingly progress from, the hacker's perspective. How do you keep up and how do you put that plumbing together in your plans as a CTO?
Yeah, Hemant, what I think when I look at the current phase of the AI transformation we are in is, I think we're in the speed phase. Humor me for 60 seconds as I describe a docu-series I watched in 2018. And it was the manufacturing of the Bugatti Veyron, the then fastest car. Um, and this was a car that could travel at 400 kilometers per hour, and it could exhaust the tank in 45 seconds.
Wow.
They
Crazy.
built the engine. They were going to do only 20 of this. They built the engine, and many parts of the engine were actually handcrafted for the kind of precision they required. They said handcrafting is the best way to do it. They test the engine and realize, wow, the heat on this is so much. I need to build a solid radiator. They now go build the radiator. They build the radiator, get the temperature in control. They go like, that's fine, but there is no tire in the world that can do this. So they go build the tire. Then they go, oh, we got the car moving with the tire, but now how do I bring it to a stop? They had to go rethink the brakes and figure out what combination of ceramic and metal would do the right combination. And then they go, that by itself is not doing enough. I need to put some aerodynamics in place, including a parachute to stop this thing at high speed, right? So in my mind, we are in the speed wave of AI. I think we are all thinking about all the other waves. The question comes up as to, do you just stop and try and figure out all of the answers to all of those things? Or do you go on the journey and you build all of those things based on the discoveries you make? My advice would be, make choices that you think are fairly easy to roll back very quickly. Take that additional risk with the insurance of the rollback in your pocket. And if that risk actually works positively, move forward to the next one.
Awesome. Vikash, I turned on your mic as well. You were asking about, this idea of working with the line of business, inspiring them, sort of creating the art of the possible. But do you help set the metrics for them? Maybe Vikash, you can further describe.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kamil. Shri, great session. Those numbers on slide one were mind-boggling. It's like crazy. So my question is around the metrics, and in the framework you had business, operations, technology. You define the metrics for the technology team, but how do you work with the business leaders to define the AI metrics for them? Is it on similar lines like productivity, speed, and how do they roll up at the organization level, right at the top? I mean, you probably can't have 100 different metrics to track. So if you could talk about that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, what I offered as a mid-ground is a set of metrics that are relevant to the business too. If on a large initiative, you are accelerating the initiative by, say, 1/3, it was going to be a 3-year project that finished in 2 years. That extra year of productivity actually lands you in either customer growth faster, revenue faster, things of that nature. And it's important to measure those outcomes and figure out how to leverage that as well. I also talked about AI for operations. In AI for operations, a part of what we've started to look at is this concept of cost to serve or shift of both. Cost to serve is if you're a customer support team and you have lots of people taking lots of calls, what is the cost of each call? I mean, you're making a customer whole on the other side, but what is it costing you to do that? And over time, is that actually reducing? Cost may not be the factor you want to look at. Maybe you're looking at customer experience and going, that customer that had an issue now was not only made whole, but their relationship with us is much deeper than it was before. So on a unit by unit basis, function by function basis, case by case basis, you have to figure out what the right outcome metric will be in that area and start to pursue that on your scorecard or placemat as something you hold as a mirror for the progress you're making.
Great. Naidu, I opened up your mic. You're asking about sort of the legacy environment. How do we sort of sift through? And you talked about sort of the legacy environment as you opened, Shri. Which ones come forward and which ones don't make it, I guess. And Naidu, maybe you can further ask a question here.
Thanks, Kamil. Nice session, Shri. So my question is, obviously all the big players today that we see, right? So kind of everybody is getting into the other turf as well. Kind of everybody is calling themselves platforms and bringing AI. What we are calling as like a bolting onto the legacy platforms. And then we see the other extreme, which is kind of a one-person unicorns, right? Those don't necessarily go and fit into the existing workflows because they're complex. As Patrick was saying, there's a lot of messy, but that's where the real life happens. And there is a reason for them. So what do you see and how are you seeing the impact of this legacy players and how is it going to impact about with the new guys that are coming up? Thank you.
Yeah, look, I mean, there is no doubt that people don't have a long heritage to manage will actually have an advantage, particularly in the short term, in this area, right? Now, of course, do they have the scale and the distribution to be as successful as some of the bigger firms? Probably not. But heritage does bring a disadvantage. But I think most firms have been on a journey for modernization. And what I'm beginning to see is that this technology is actually helping accelerate the modernization journey. If I take COBOL, Smalltalk, and a bunch of other heritage technologies that I still have, in those places, taking the code and converting them into a business requirements document now is a highly exercised capability in our environment. We're not directly taking that code and turning it into Java code, because what we want to do is there is decades of embedded wisdom in that code that's been written, and we want to make sure that any error in translation doesn't drop like critical checks and balances that it might have done. Again, not a fantastic answer to your question. I think upgrade debt is something all of us carry. I think the upgrade debt also gets a subsidy from this technology. But the focus on that and the journey on that doesn't diminish. It is now just assisted and supported by some of this tech that you can apply. Now, I'll also be very careful in saying getting to code is only the first step in building a solid engineering system. There's a lot that needs to happen afterwards to make sure that that code functions within the ecosystem you're running, interacts well with all the other parts. And that's where, to some of the first conversations we had, architecture is important. And in architecture, that concept of building code, standards, guidelines, best practices, the way systems interact, all of that is critical. Here again, you will see a bit of departure from known paradigms that we have all held very highly over the last decade or so. We organized into backlogs and sprints because there was so much work and so many people that we needed a method of organization. There'll be many, many teams in the future, which will be one product manager, two engineers, and you go from idea to finish in one sitting, and the sprint will be a day.
Wow.
Backlogless, sprintless is a possibility. Not everywhere, possibility. We did microservices because we thought that is the best way to do modularity. But microservices, in my mind, is actually a human design. Systems can deal with way more. We broke it up because we wanted to manage it a certain way. And I think there'll be some repatriation from microservices too. So what we consider truly legacy and what we today consider modern may actually also turn into legacy in the new paradigm, and we should be aware of both.
Everybody's legacy at some point, right? Pramod, I opened up your mic.
Legacy is a feature. Legacy is a feature. Look, I mean, any system that is more than 2 days old has legacy. And this is where technology lifecycle management as a science needs to become something that you pay a lot of attention to and have a methodology for. Because tech modernization is an evergreen project. It's not a one and done thing.
Pramod, I opened up your mic to talk about coding and sort of the SDLC process of the future. Perhaps, Pramod, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Thanks, Camille. Thanks, Sri. Fascinating conversation. Just the speed at which things are moving is mind-boggling. But my question to you, I got asked this by an engineer the other day that the page, I think I saw your comment about reading skills, code skills in importance versus writing, right? But if you take that further, the pace at which AI will write code, you'll also be in a situation where if you really want a human in the middle, the AI will write gazillions of codes within minutes or hours, and human will, if you really need somebody to validate that, and if they really need to understand that, it'll be much more time to even like days to understand it. And to me, it seems like the logical progression of this is you will lose control over code. I mean, the ability to really want to sit and understand the flow versus the focus will shift to automation and testing and QA. I'm just curious on your thoughts on how you see this.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, but at the same time, here's what I'll say too. When I go deep into my liquidity systems and I look at what position keeper algorithms need to be, will I trust it yet to just AI coding it away through a vibing session? No, I will not. On the other hand, if you want to build an ops tool or build a dashboard or something of that nature, will I fully delegate it to AI? Absolutely, yes. I'll do it today. And the skills will change. And this is where, if you don't mind, I'll share a 90-second story on the evolution of autopilot in airlines. The first version of autopilot was actually built in 1913, way before electronics came into existence. And it was all based on a gyroscopic device where once you got to a certain elevation, if you engaged it, it would keep the aircraft at that height and that elevation going forward. 60s is the first time electrical systems started to get built. 80s is the time when electronics were built. And now, on an average transcontinental flight of about 14 hours, there's 14 minutes of pilot time. Have the number of pilots reduced? No, we have more pilots today than we did back then. What are they doing? Are they doing the same thing they did then? Not at all. Also, what's a story that's not said is turns out cockpits used to be larger, and there used to be 5 people in the cockpit. There was a pilot, co-pilot, a radio engineer, a flight engineer, and a navigator. GPS comes in and navigator goes away. Radio management and air traffic control became a science, and the radio engineer went away. Flights became a lot more sophisticated, both mechanically and electronically, so there was no more flight engineer there. So how things are going to change is very hard to predict right now. Roles will change, that's for sure. And there will be some roles that won't exist in the future. There are many roles that will change in what the composition and expectation of the role are. And there are some new roles that don't exist today that will come into existence in the future. That's the reality as I see it. Can we predict it? No, I don't think so. We just have to learn through some of that and be open to the fact that we undergo change and we come through well on the other side.
Mudit, I turned your mic on. I'm not sure you had a question, though. If you do, please ask it.
Sure.
If not, Greg, I've turned your mic on as well. So next, just in the lineup here.
Thank you, Shri and Camille. I think awesome conversation, first of all. Thank you so much. The question I have on the data, and many times that comes up when ROI is not achieved for whatever AI transformation we are doing, blame goes to data. I don't know how much that true is, but I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, how do you see data in the whole equation of achieving ROI?
Yeah, no, you're very right. I think we have taken a traditional narrative on like, oh, to get value from AI, you need to get all your data right. And somehow we have stretched that into the Gen AI phase of AI as well. By the way, there is no doubt data needs to be done right. Modeling should be correct. The management in terms of the pipeline, technical data quality, business data quality, the performance of it, the economics of it, all of them should be things that we all should do well as an enterprise. But to put data as a precondition for creating AI value in the Gen AI economy, I think is a false narrative. My advice would be you actually start with the business value case and then go, how do you achieve that with AI and get the data related to that piece right? Let's not take a boil the ocean approach to saying get all your data right first. No, focus on the vertical slice use case that you know will generate value. Start with some imagination, start to work on it, figure out what data is fine, what is not fine, fix that data, and pragmatically move forward in that way. Data will get a bad rap, but I think that is almost a easy to blame um, portion of the enterprise when we don't get AI right.
Greg, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Gamal and Shri. Awesome presentation. Thank you. My question is around how are you structuring your AI risk management framework to handle this move from assist to act? In particular, I'm really interested in decision accountability and how you're thinking about that relative to model autonomy and even adversarial manipulation at scale.
Yeah, so many different things there, right? Look, I think within my organization, I've been very clear about the fact that um, while the responsibility of a task or a utility may now fall on AI, the accountability always sits with a human being. And that's been a key part of guiding people to make sure that it's not just a delegate and done kind of situation. Eventually, we as a firm are accountable to the trust on every transaction that our customers bring to us, the relationship they have with us. The fact that we have applied AI as a technology is definitely an accelerator and a powerful concept, but it is our obligation as people in the organization to still uphold all of that trust and continuing to build on the great foundation the firm has built over a long period of time. Guardrails is a very important portion of the investment cycle that we're going through. I mentioned earlier what we as humans apply in every situation and how we need to make sure that our AI systems are beginning to do that. And what you brought up in terms of delegation of agency is something we should do with care. And as in pockets, you will move agency from a human to a system, that has to come with the right protections to ensure that there's a sandbox in which it operates and it doesn't defy the intent that it was built with. Now, bad instructions, bad prompts, bad guardrails will cause issues. But my faith is in us as engineers who, it's not like our current technologies are not creating incidents for us. They do. But with each one of them, we built a learning culture to where we take that and figure out, make sure it doesn't recur again. So this journey will not be just a perfect into the positive journey. It'll include those learnings, sometimes internally, sometimes through the learnings of others. And I think that's the place where all of us can actually collaborate and make sure that this is a safe journey for all of us.
Joe, you had a question?
Oh, thank you. And Sri, this is wonderful. So we've QA code. How do we measure progress or impact of changes where, are we progressing or need to roll back? With the speed of change, how does the feedback loop on EX and CX measurement improve? And how do you pulse the effect of change more effectively, as precursors to revenue flows? In the most simple way, I think, do you measure customer experience in an actionable way, comparing yourself to various competitive sets? Is this a VOC plus synthetic, or do you have a more real-time approach to measuring the impact of the technology initiatives on customer experience?
Yeah, in my past experience, we had very sophisticated measures of tracking and experimentation. And the observability that created in customer interaction often gave us way more solid implicit answers than the explicit ones that we'd get through surveys. That said, we shouldn't abandon surveys. A part of a real interaction with the customer and asking them about their experience, doing it through digital surveys are one aspect of this, but you're right. With this kind of pace of change, you'll need to start to pay attention to those implicit signals. What are they doing on your digital surfaces? How are they interacting? What are they abandoning? Where are they hitting moments of toil, moment of friction, moments of frustration? That observability is a must. And now then taking that whole concept of two product managers, one product manager, two engineers, a sprint a day, and using that VOC that's implicit in signals and applying that to corrections that you make in the experience, you'll automatically see a shift in those signals as well. So faster feedback loops as well. Are we at that destination of reality? Absolutely not. Is that a journey we are on? Absolutely yes.
Shri, we're at the top of the hour. I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. First of all, thank you so much. Honored to have you here. Clearly, there's a lot to learn from all your experience and lots of questions. I'm sorry for those of you where I wasn't able to get to your questions. We have captured this content. We'll send out a Zoom recording plus Shri's content shortly. Please reach out to me if you've got questions that you'd like me to help resolve as well. And Shri, thank you again for your time.
No, look, I think thank you for the opportunity. My hope is this was useful in some way. I'd love to learn from all of you too. So to those of you still on the call, if you want to drop a LinkedIn request or a connection, I'd love to learn from all of you as much as maybe I was able to share today.
Shri, thank you again. Have a good rest of your day. And thank you, everybody, as well, for joining the call today. And I look forward to doing more of these in the near future as well.
All right. Bye.